to Heather to give us a little bit of her perspective.
Absolutely. As Don was saying, it's very important as we move forward in this e-government movement to figure out how to authenticate securely, while protecting privacy, and really ensure that people feel comfortable talking to government, and government feels comfortable talking to the public. So CDT has a few principles that we feel really would make sure that we protect privacy as we move towards, some sort of authentication, be it OpenID or something that conforms to, level 3 of the HSPD 12. All these different needs for government. Back here. And the first point I really want to make is that identity, authentication, and privacy are not at odds. They can be two key components of some identification system, but if it's designed correctly, it will not, be a privacy invasion. It will, you use the information you need, you don't use the information you don't need, and you really use the fair information practices from way back in the 70s to make sure that you're using information correctly and authenticating well and keeping everyone informed. So really making sure you don't authenticate when you don't need to. So for example, I don't want to have to give my social security number to comment on the White House blog. There are all sorts of situations where anonymity or pseudonymity is really appropriate, at that level 1 of the HSPD 12 standard, and the authentication standard. Make sure. Yes, and really protecting the ability to have anonymous credentials, as opposed to necessarily some identity that's tied to my name, or my job, or my social security number. As government moves towards giving those services, because a lot of those services really, when I submit a form to the government, there's no reason they need to know who I am before they get that form. And the fair information practices kind of assert that I want to know how my information is used. I want to know who has my information, where it's being shared, and what decisions are being made about me, and be given the opportunity to say, no, your information is wrong, the decision you've made is wrong, and let me tell you why. And that really embodies privacy controls to me, to really building those into the authentication systems will protect privacy at the same time as we move forward with the e-government services. And there's been some questions as to why authentication is harder as we move into e-government than it is necessarily for the private sector. I think Srinivas talked a little bit about how, and Paul, about how fragmented the authentication efforts have been thus far. Let me make sure I get and so there have been disparate authentication systems at different levels of authorization, at different levels of assurance. And as we move towards some sort of, overarching identification or some certificate authority like OpenID that can then go and touch back to all the agencies, as I was saying, the fair information practices need to be built in, and make sure that because many of these transactions are mandatory, privacy is protected at a very high level. So.
Great, thank you very much. Kelly.